Today's task for us is to remind ourselves what the cascade analysis is. Maybe you know it, maybe you use it already to analyze your data, but let's look more specifically into it and see what we can do with it. And also we'll have a group work. Now, the task is to understand the TB care cascade and also to identify the gaps in quality of care through the care data analysis. So what is it? This is the best practice of facilitating data analysis and using it for finding gaps in the programs. Now, Cascade quantify, track, and visualize how they visualize the effectiveness of the programs and see how they're performing for the target population at progressive stages toward an expected outcome. It is the way of using existing data in a smart, custom-made, stepwise model built to answer the questions that matter most to decision makers. So it's sounds like fancy, you know, it's a individual, custom-made, you know, intellectual. Yes. And it also helps to characterize sequential steps within TB service programs, prevention, testing, and treatment, and is used to visualize and quantify. For instance, it allows to assess the system performance towards an expected outcome, inefficiencies, and bottlenecks.
The cascade care, то есть каскад услуг, на русском.
And the cascade of care. In Russian, they call it the cascade of service, actually. It is a model for evaluating patient retention across sequential stages of care that are required for achieving a successful treatment outcome. This approach was first used to evaluate the HIV care, and we as representatives of TB programs, if we had joint meetings with HIV program representatives, we've seen they always show the cascade of care, starting with the number of people to be tested for HIV, then the number of tested, then the number of detected, then the 𝗿𝗲𝗿𝗲, then the sustained nervous, viral suppressors, etc. Number of that. So we've seen it many times during presentations of HIV program representatives, but we've started it quite recently in the TB area. So cascade analysis was not frequently used before to analyze the TB program's data. And the TB community has only recently started using this care cascade analysis to quantify gaps in quality of care. On the first day, when we presented the regional data, which showed the cascade, remember what it was like? Do you remember what this cascade was? We showed the cascade of one of the indicators. It was the DST, the TLH. So in the format of the cascade, we showed the gaps existing in the European region from the point of view of coverage, testing of the first and the second line, and the new medication. So the last point was resistance to 𝗿𝗲𝗀𝗍𝗍. Now, what are the objectives of the cascade analysis? The main objective of cascade analysis is to measure gaps and missed opportunities to find and treat TB patients throughout the whole continuum of care. Also, we need to understand the reasons for the gaps and will help to identify missed opportunities. Now, to see what worked worse than the other, like, for instance, diagnostic, treatment, or prevention services, or maybe we're missing certain target groups, or maybe we're missing certain geographic areas. What other combinations of these gaps exist? Not limited to the programmatic questions, but however, of course, not everything is ideal. Not everything can provide answers to all questions. Of course, the cascade analysis has its own limitations. And what these limitations are? For instance, the cascade analysis, it's not a panacea, and its limitations are lack of high quality and complete data for every step. It is also a lack of standard definitions for the cascade steps. So the first paragraph, what does it mean? A lack of high quality and complete data for every step. How would you interpret this gap? How would you understand it? How would you explain what it means? Because it limits the possibilities of the cascade analysis. Well, I mean that one of the limitations is the lack of high quality and complete data for every step. So what does it depend on? It depends on the quality of data. So if the data is of low quality, and if we make a very nice looking diagram, then it still will be, pardon my French, bullshit. It will not reflect the truth. So in order for the cascade analysis and the diagram that we receive in the end, for it to be true, for it to reflect the truth and to show the real gaps, it needs high quality data. So it all depends on the data, on the quality of the data that we would use for the analysis. Possible overlaps in steps. What does it mean? It means that people, now we have steps and stages and cascades, right? And therefore, some stages would be overlaps, they're duplicated. It means that they are not unique. It also shows what and where the problems or gaps are, but they do not reveal the reasons to why these gaps exist. So they don't give us information about the reasons and causes of such gaps. We'll just see that we have insufficient detection, for instance, or insufficient number of patients completed treatment, or insufficient number of patients received diagnostics via molecular or other methods. So we will not have the answer to the question why. And therefore, the cascade data analysis should lead us to some additional collection of data and analysis to further explain reasons for gaps in order to have more specific actions and to use and for resources more efficiently and to target those resources. Now, so the cascade analysis gives us information about what and where, but we will not learn why. But I think we'll learn about it a little later. Marga will speak to us about the root cause analysis. It will be tomorrow. Yeah. So, and she'll speak about the different analysis methodologies. So after we see where these gaps and defects are, then we'll do the root cause analysis, and then we'll know why these gaps exist. And we will then use the methods that will help us not only see where and what the gaps are, but also it will help us to study the causes for that. Now, what is required to do the cascade analysis? First of all, we need to gather and compile the data in the table, and we will need to create these diagrams or charts, and then we need to interpret it. For instance, we have two examples of cascade analysis. One is from the screening, and another is about the treatment. So what can you say about these charts? What can you see from them? So I understand that it's all very clear, but still, let's talk. Let's explain. Now, let's take the first one, the screening cascade. Now, what do we see here? The first column, it is individuals
eligible для скрининга, то есть
eligible for screening. It means that it's people should be screened.
Второй столбец это что такое?
And what is the other column? It is individuals that were actually screened for TB. I think it's a very simple example, and we see that the gap constitutes 17%. We clearly see that 17% of the population that were eligible for screening did not pass the screening. It could be our target groups like intravenous users of drugs. So we were told, say then, for instance, that it's 5,000 people are intravenous users, and during the year we were conducting, say, active screening, and I don't know exactly how much is 70%, but say we've screened actually 4,500. So it is the gap, and out of screened, we say detected presumptive TB cases, right? Which we have to address to the special services for additional examination, because screening gives us just the presumptive cases, right? Out of those, say only 88% reached the further testing and examination. So it very well shows the whole process and requires a lot of work. It can be quite a long process, but it shows very well where we started, what was initially, and then what was the ultimate result. So what we've covered actually. And it is actually the number of presumptive TB cases that were tested, were further tested for TB, either to diagnose, maybe, or to exclude it. Now, the next chart is about the treatment cascade. And we can do this cascade for any indicator, actually. And what we include into this cascade depends on us. We can start the treatment cascade, like here, for instance, it starts with the number of presumptive TB cases with confirmed TB. And it's quite logical, right, that we start with it. We start with, instead of, starting with people that have to go through screening. It makes no sense, right? So it depends on us what we include into the cascade analysis. It all should be quite logical, and it's logical that we start the treatment cascade with the people whose diagnosis was confirmed. And then we see the figure, how many of confirmed patients started treatment, and we see that only 82% have started. And then we see that the patients successfully treated. So out of those who have started, only 79% were successfully treated, so either completed treatment or successfully cured. But also the cascade gives us what is the total gap. Out of confirmed cases, how many were successfully treated and what's the gap between the starting and the end point? So we have the success rate much lower, right? Because we start with the number of confirmed cases, yeah, and then we have a gap of 18% who never started treatment, and then it's the ended treatment. So, and this is really linked to the updated WHO requirements that those cohorts for determination of the end of treatment and the outcome of treatment, right? We include those who have passed the treatment and those who didn't start in treatment. And also can be lost to follow-up people, right? In one gap, these are people who started and then were lost to follow-up, or those who never started any treatment. And of course, there can be other reasons. For instance, they've died before the treatment started, or maybe they refused treatment. So, because of that, now our success rates are lower. So, if before that we were actually counting the people who've started the treatment and what can be the results that cure completed, it will be still people who've started. It's just the denominator will not be those who started, but those who were detected and confirmed as to be cases. We also have the loss to follow-up, we have died, we have failures. So those categories, they create this gap, and we actually see that the percentage of successfully treated versus that who started, it's like 79%. And if we start at, if we look at the first column, right, then the gap is really, 35% only, and the success rate is 65% only. Now, this is the process that is shown by step, actually, and that this cascade can have any information that is information regarding screening, then tests, and information about those enrolled, who were attached to care, so they started treatment, and then they successfully treated, right? Now, this is the table, as an example, and I actually distributed these materials to you. Look at the second page. This is the example from Georgia. This is real data. So the first step was to create a table for the cascade analysis. We've asked you to use your data, but if you want to use this ready-made table for the group work, then you can see that, the years are starting from 2015, and Armenia can, say, pick 2016, Moldova 2018, or Ukraine 2020 or 2021, and then, do this exercise. Now, what do we do to start with the cascade analysis? First of all, we collect relevant data into the table. So if it's the cascade analysis of 𝗿-𝗲𝗄, I think she means to say, then we collect the relevant data. If it's a cascade analysis of the treatment, then we need some different data and different variables. So in this table, for instance, we see that this is a TB pathway cascade. So it is what is the path that the patients should go through from screening to treatment. We see that we had 10,000 people who were screened. Out of them, presumptive TB was identified in the thousands, so it's 10%. Out of them, further testing was passed 95%, which is 915 figures. Out of them, confirmed TB was in hundreds of them, it is 11%, and not all of them, only 90%, started treatment. So this is roughly the example that we've seen in a diagram, and this is what it would look like as a chart. So what would you add to this chart so that we have even more information? Percentages, right? We would add percentages. We indicate here the absolute figures. Yeah, we see how many were screened, the presumptive cases, etc., etc. But it would be good to look at the percentages as well, right? Because they definitely indicate the gaps. So if we say that the coverage is the 100% with the new molecular methods, that it should be 100%, that all presumptive cases should go through the diagnostics with the gene expert, then it's then less and less, right? We can compare those percentages with our indicators. Well, as you can see, percentages really give us some additional information, and we see that 95% of presumptive cases went through the gene expert. It is quite a good percentages of coverage, actually, by molecular methods of people with presumptive TB. And question marks mean, why? Yeah, and that's what we don't know. We don't know the causes. And for that, we require to do the root cause analysis. This slide is quite a busy slide, but I like it because it describes the entire process, and it also gives us some formulas that we can use about denominator, etc. And we receive the information. Now, for every step, you don't see that? Oh, you do, okay. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H indicators.
И А – это общее число лиц, подлежащих...
A is a total number of those eligible for screening. So what is it? It's 100%. B is those who actually went through screening for TB. And in order to identify the percentages, so those who were screened are divided to those eligible for screening and multiplied by 100. Then who were screened, we have the C, right? The presumptive TB cases. To identify the percentage of presumptive TB cases, we can divide C to B. And so every next indicator shall be divided in the previous one. And in the previous slide, I showed that, yes, but how many out of those eligible for screening could be presumptive? Say we had 1,000 presumptive, and only 700 past screening, for instance. And out of 700, say we have 70 presumptive cases. But out of, like in the rest of the number, we don't know that in that remaining part, we could have presumptive cases, right? And therefore, we divide here, due to A, because it will be even more. So it gives us even more insight.
Те, которые были как бы TB presumptive, то есть предполагаемые на туберкулез, обследовались.
Out of this TB presumptive, the D number was actually tested further for TB, and we can divide D to C, etc., etc. Now, out of those evaluated, the E number was diagnosed when the cases were confirmed, and it's clear how we estimate the percentage. And out of those diagnosed, the F number started the treatment. So the treatment coverage would be F divided by E. And again, we can see the percentage that could have been confirmed cases that we couldn't cover by the diagnostics. So we could show that the percent of the detection of TB in the part where testing was not done, and we can assume then that, say, 300 were missed during the screening, and then 20 were missed during the diagnostics because 70 were the presumptive, and then we miss 24 on the expert, etc. So, and further, these figures, go less and less, they decline. So, and out of, say, these 20 missed, it can be a chance that out of those 20, we could have confirmed cases. And this is the gap, right? And of course, the gap in the number of people that started actually the treatment. And in the end, we have the new recidive cases that were successfully cured. Now, the percentages are clear, right? And the variations of these percentages. So we can, divide this current into the previous indicator, but we can have a bigger, more global picture and look at the whole group. It is also very interesting to look at the left-hand side. You've probably had these screening programs, and one of the indicators that we planned, this is the number of needed to be screened and the number needed to be treated. And we see how we need to calculate this figure. So it's the number needed to screen. This is NNS. It is B divided into E.
Число, необходимое для проверки NNT, это D over E. А коэффициент отношения предположительного заболевания к туберкулезу, C, это предполагаемый туберкулез, over E. То есть на presumptive TB to presumptive ratio. Это соотношение. Это, то есть, как male to female, да, мы уже мужчина к женщине.
So this will be the last C over E. On this slide, you see very good example. It says that this is a real cascade. This is a treatment, a successful treatment cascade. And Here we have the next category, people with active TB.
Окей, нет проблем, здесь посмотрим. Окей. Значит, на этом слайде давайте вас спросим.
So on this slide, we will ask you what you see. So you see the cascade of successful treatment. And then the next category, we see people with active TB with the incidence. And the first is the estimated number of people with TB. Then we see screened for TB, presumptive TB, evaluated for TB. Then we had assessed, confirmed, notified, started treatment, and successfully treated. Yes, but here we have additional information, this we also see in subgroups. So blue is HIV, orange is private sector, PH is gray, and TB facilities is yellow. So it is plus additional information. So this cascade is already segregated to HIV, private sector, or by facilities that evaluated, etc. So we can do it for our subgroups like risk groups to show how much were revealed HIU. So those people who have diabetes, malnutrition, etc. This graph provides additional information about cascade in each of the categories. For example, people that were evaluated for TB in TB facilities. So we see how many were screened in TB facilities, how many were revealed as presumptive TB, how many were diagnosed by gene expert, how many evaluated, how many treated. So this diagram provides additional information in subgroups. And here would be great also to see the percentages for each of the categories, because yesterday we had a very good presentation on visualization. And if there were percentages shown here, we would see better what is the coverage in each category. So this cascade is an example of DSTB. They are for some reason not translated, but here we have TB incidence in the population, which is estimated of TB cases in population. The only thing that I don't like in these cascades is the idea of starting with estimated, then we continue with the number to be screened. So, but this is estimated, it should be even lower than the number to be screened. Or the key groups for screening. But here we have estimated number of incident cases in the population. So in Georgia, it should be 3,000 according to WHO. Of course, the number of eligible for screening should be higher. Yes, this is wrong. That's what I'm saying. And well, these are examples, but we can ourselves understand that the first variable is not logical here. It has not be. It has not. Does not have to be here, but here to start with the estimated number of cases and then show the screening cascade. It's not logical. The cascade screen should start from eligible to be screened, so those who are supposed to undergo screening. So you yourself understand that some cascades can be misleading, providing not very correct and not very accurate information. And yeah, that's exactly when we talked about the limitations. This is one of them, one of the limitations, the quality of information and relevance of information that should be presented here. So if this is so, then this country is doing very poorly, because even the number of individuals who would be eligible are not covered with screening, because the screening number should be some 20 times. Of course, that's what I was saying. If we start with estimated numbers, then it makes no sense to continue with cascade of screening. Then we have to have the cascade showing how many were diagnosed or how, not even diagnosed, how many were reviewed. But then we have the rest is logical, how many individuals were screened, how many presumptive TB, how many presumptive TB examined by TB specialists, how many of them, well, not all of them were gene expert tested, and then that many was bacteriologically confirmed cases. Of them, these many were tested for drug susceptibility, and here we see already the number of diagnosed cases, which is higher than the number of people who were bacteriologically confirmed, and this is logical because TB. So not only those who are TB diagnosed who were bacteriologically confirmed, but also who were clinically confirmed. So this is very well reflected here, because it should be not only. So this number almost coincides with the number who were gene expert tested. So gene expert screening in this country is done very filtered out only for those who are almost 100% diagnosed. But gene expert testing should be done for all the presumptive TB here. Then, of those who were reviewed to have TB, then the treatment number is almost coinciding. Okay, so yes, here we have a number of people who did not believe that they have TB, but these are only those who are not bacteriologically confirmed. When we have the cases when the patient does not believe and there are some lawsuits for treatment, these are cases just clinically confirmed, not bacteriologically. And then we have this treatment and then a successful treatment. Started treatment and successful treatment. So it's very good because we can reveal several problems at once. And yeah, so tomorrow we are talking about, but well, we have many methods of revealing the reasons, and it's not only methods of evaluation, but also researchers. And lab researchers will help us to get answers to this question. This is also Cascade, but only for DRTB. And here we have patients who were gene expert testing, so assessed with WRD, the DX test. This is molecular method. Out of which bacteriologically confirmed cases, out of them we have even less who received the first-line drug susceptibility testing. Of them, this is the number of first-line resistant drug resistance detected, and then second-line drug resistant TB was confirmed for this many cases, but we see the notified TB cases number is much higher. Very big percentage, big part of bacteriologically non-confirmed and DRTB. So this can be contacts, etc. But we see a big problem here compared to those who were confirmed MDR-TB or bacteriologically confirmed DRTB and XDR-TB. We had, and we have twice as many notified DRTB, and of them the number who started treatment is higher compared to bacteriologically confirmed, and how many successfully treated. So here we see this very big difference, but you remember when we report to WHO, the number of patients with confirmed MDR-TB is higher. So than the number of bacteriologically confirmed. But here we have a big problem. So the main stages and steps that should be taken. So to organize relevant data in Excel table from relevant sources for the respective year, it can be number of pulmonary TB cases, number of pulmonary TB cases tested using expert and other diagnostic tests such as microscopy culture or LPA, number of bacteriologically confirmed cases, number with known rifampicin DST result, number of resistance to rifampicin, RTB, number of known fluoroquinolone DST results, number of resistance to fluoroquinolone, number of known bedaquiline and linezolid DST results. So these are the numbers which are necessary. So before that, we saw cascade analysis of screening of susceptible TB, and so here we need these data, and you have an example of this, the cascade from Excel real data from Georgia, and here we can choose 1 year and look at DST. So we will choose 2021. And what do we have? We have all TB cases. Among them, how many were pulmonary TB, bacteriologically confirmed. Of them, how many were rifampicin DST result known. And out of them, how many were resistant to rifampicin? Those who were rifampicin resistant, or those how many had resistance to and out of them, how many were resistant to fluoroquinolone, and how many are resistant to bedaquiline and linezolid, and how many of them were XDR. Well, let's have a look at these data, and we have such a diagram. So this is done in Excel. You don't need anything additional. So if you show the data like this, we can receive this combined graph from Excel, and this allows not only to know the information, to have the information about numbers, but also to compare the percentages. But for that, we will need an additional row here. The bars and the graph will be from this line, this row, but to have percentages, we have to calculate. So I can show you, so 95% bacteriologically confirmed, 98% rifampicin DST result known. So all these data, not only absolute figures, numbers, but also percentages will be included. And here we have this diagram. We can see the quantitative information on the cascade. Yeah, we can remove the bars and have okay, we can remove the lines, and we will have only the numbers, the percentages, as it's W line. So TB infection care cascade among close contact. Yes. Here we have Sandro. He is very insistent asking these questions, and we must answer them. So imagine you are on a hypothetical mission to a country in TB DIAH, with the mission to evaluate TB prevention program of the. So we are provided with only one number, only one piece of information, that in 2022 preventive therapy was completed by 500 contacts, and that's it. So we requested some information, and that is what we were provided. So let's we request we should request some additional information. So what additional information should be requested? So this is the situation. So we can imagine the cascade of the program of LTBI, but the only thing that we have is the last figure that we would be interested in. So people who completed preventive treatment, which is 500. Now let's start asking what should be before that. So first, so if we start from the beginning of Cascade, now please let's go backwards. In that case, that should be how many requested, how many started, okay. Okay, now the next group. Thank you. You're absolutely right. How many contacts were initiated on TPT, who started treatment? Armenia, please. What should be before that? How many were sent for treatment? Yes, you are absolutely right. So contact. Okay, so eligible, recommended. Yes, exactly, recommended. So how many were recommended? Because yes, how many of them complied with the criteria? So we had 800 cases like that, 650 started treatment, 500 completed. Moldova, please, what should be before that? The number of screens. LTBI screen. Yes, if LTBI screening, imagine testing, yes. If the country includes for preventive treatment only those patients who are positive tested, no, all those who were tested, and then the results. Well, 1,000 patients were tuberculin scan tested, out of which 200 were positive. If the country looks at the results of testing, then what should be before that? Yes, those who were positive, yes. But the country might have, if this is a group under 5 years old, age, the result of testing does not matter, and we can just omit this test. So these are family contacts under 5 years of age who were excluded to have TB. Yeah, and then yes, but if this is some other program, there we might have a filter, and there the country might offer this treatment only to those who are positive. So yes, so here we have contacts who were screened but did not show, okay, screened negative for active TB, or contacts who were screened but showed negative result for active TB. So what is the algorithm of the country then? So it means that they, yes, for those, of course, if they don't have TB. Before that, we have contact screened for TB. To start preventive treatment, we have to make sure that they do not have TB. Yes, okay. And we had 1,100 contacts that were screened for TB. Out of those 1,100, 1,000 were negative. Just one clarification, please. So we exclude active TB, but if there is infection, we can recommend preventive treatment. Yes, yes, of course, because with 1,000 patients can start preventive treatment because they did not show signs and symptoms of active TB. Well, in this specific cascade, they do not test infection. So this is a program that introduces preventive treatment with no regard to test, so without a test on latent. So here we have all the contacts. Out of this 1,000 contacts, 1,000 contacts do not have TB. 1,100 were tested. 100 were confirmed, showed TB, and 1,000 do not have. And the active TB, so they are eligible, but preventive treatment was offered to 800 patients by clinicians. So here we have, here we might have allergic reactions that the patients might have, or some accompanying diseases, or this can be various factors due to which the doctors did not offer. So the contacts which was screened, so that they can be different criteria, like for example the dose, etc., the weight, because the pediatricians, for example, they are afraid to give their patients such high dose of isoniazid, for example. So 1,000 were supposed to be recommended, but only 800 were recommended. So where are the rest 200? Yes, we might investigate. It might not bad. The reasons could be justified why those 200 did not receive, were not recommended for treatment. This before people undergo screening, TB screening, we should have whom? So if these are contacts. Yes, these are contacts who were revealed, contacts of the patient. Close contacts, so it's a number of contacts, and we see that we had 1,200 of them. And here is our full cascade. Who wants to describe this cascade, the situation, the entire situation? So everything starts with the TB index cases, and there were, for example, 200 bacteriologically confirmed. Out of them, we have 1,200 contacts. So we had 200 confirmed cases and 1,200 contacts. It could be 5-to-1, 3-to-1, 10-to-1, depending on the country, depending on the household, how many people live together, or how many close contacts they have. Here in this cascade, we had 200 confirmed, bacteriologically confirmed cases. Only 180 index cases. So only for them the contacts were investigated, which means that not all of them had contact. Yeah, so here we have a gap, you see, but of those whose contacts were traced, we have only 1,200 close contacts. Out of them, 1,100 were screened for TB, but all of them were supposed to be screened. Yeah, so here we again have a little gap. So, and out of
1,000
1,100,
are without it.
1,000 are without active TB, so which means that 100 had active TB, so they're not interested for
1,000
this
without
cascade
the
anymore.
active tuberculosis, so they are not interested for that. So the country does not introduce any test, and it can be either unavailable or, but the algorithm of the WHO allows that if we cannot do tests for latent B, then we can suggest test the close contacts depending on the burden of the disease in the country. So out of these 1,000 contacts without the TB, 800 contacts were suggested for preventive treatment, and we talked about it, but out of them, only 650 have started, and out of the 650, that's contacts but initiated, but completed cases is 500. So it's not a bad percentage if we look at the 650 and 500, but if we see those who were recommended start and then those who completed, of course, it will be lower percentages. But when those free from TB, but recommended for prophylaxis, that will be 50%, right? So this cascade analysis allows to see in stages, several various gaps. You've seen this cascade yesterday, but I like it for visualization. Ezra showed it yesterday. This is the cascade of co-infection of TB and HIV in two directions. So it's interesting for us in two directions. Why? In terms of co-infection and the preventive treatment of HIV patients. And it is a good visualization that gives us information in two directions. So we start with those who were screened for the TB. And to the right, we have the cascade of TB treatment, and to the left, of TB prevention. So in the cascade of treatment, out of those who were screened for TB, how many were, how many tested positive, and how many were passing through the test for TB, and those who positive tested for TB and presumed TB, etc. And out of the same people of PLHIV that were screened for TB, they were screened as negative, though they were negative for TB, so it was not confirmed in them. Out of them, this is the number that was tested for LTPI. So it's the WHO algorithm that allows for starting preventive treatment among HIV patients without testing, and there are programs that are recommended to do testing, and only then they start treatment. So this is the number of patients that passed screening, that were screened for LTPI, these negative results, and these are those who were eligible for starting and who started actually the preventive. They were both eligible and started. And then we have the number of those who have completed a full regimen of DPT. So we see here the full information about this co-infection in terms of the cascade of treatment as well as prevention. So we can use an approach like that. So here are gaps as well. We can see that clearly. Tested for LTBI. So those were tested for LTBI, and then it says that they were eligible, so they should have started the treatment, and they have started. So there is no basically gap in there.
Завершили гораздо меньше.
But the number of completed cases is smaller. All right, colleagues, we have a group work now. We have 20 minutes. Oh, 25. All right. So questions. Can we go back to the slide of the preventive? Like, we have two questions, really. First one, are there any some examples of countries where they have the initial registration forms or the system of data collection that would show the whole cascade that could be verified, because we collect the so-called operational data, and this data is really of low quality. It's very hard to verify them, especially in the big country. This is one question. And the second, the very last indicator, this is like completed preventive, not successfully, just completed the preventive treatment. So how do we record or account the patients who start treatment in the fourth quarter? So the treatment would not be finished in that year, and then if we start the new cohort in the new year, then these people do not fall under this year, or they do not fall under the estimates for the next year. All right, let me answer the second question. First of all, thank you very much for these wonderful questions. So, in case of TB patients, so how do you account these people who started treatment in December? We have the cohort treatment. For whom we have allocated, say, the 1 year and plus 1 quarter. So here we ask, how many started, etc. So it's not a year, but maybe 6 months. And those who've started, so we just do not collect this data in the end of the calendar year, but we just, sort of make a little sort of the gap of 1 year. Yes, it could be done like that. For instance, in 2020, 2023, we give information for the previous year. So
проблематично, если 9 или 6-месячные превенционные режимы лечения.
If the preventive treatment started in December, that would be problematic, but it is related to the first question, so where we get and how we get this data. I think Armenia collects some kind of information like that. I mean, the information about the number of contacts, the log of contacts we were talking about yesterday, the logs of preventive treatment. So, in Georgia, I will give you the example of Georgia, and I want to give the opportunity to Armenia because I know that they actually collect a part of information electronically. So, Anush, please. Yes. The whole information is being collected for 2 years about the contacts, and before that, we would publish the annual report. Now, people who started treatment in December, their contacts are tested within a month or in a month, but in the electronic form, we introduce the data to that case, so they fall under that cohort, and we provide report in a month or 2 months. So we publish the annual reports in approximately February, March, and we present the report to WHO in April, so we managed to collect all the data. And quarterly reports, yeah, we may have some problem to, sort of missing data for the quarterly report. No, it's the number of completed. Yeah, so this information is not collected in Armenia. You have information about the number of started, yes. So your cascade would end here, right? Yes, on the column before the last. So this cascade shows the most desirable option. So it's the 𝗿𝗲𝗀𝗀 cascade that we said. So since the investigation and study of conducts until the completion. So this is what is desirable. However, of course, the options may vary. I want to ask colleagues of Georgia, or I will tell you, in Georgia, we have an application. We've introduced it in 2022, which is called 𝗵𝗵𝗿𝗲 app, and it includes all the information, and this information is not only about the contacts, but all risk groups that shall be eligible to preventive treatment. We can divide it into two parts. So we have, for households, so we start with the index case. Yesterday we said that we develop a new big information system, and that system will include all the programmatic interventions, but so far it's all scattered around different databases, and one of them is 𝗵𝗵𝗿𝗲. So there we collect information sufficient for analysis. So we start with the index cases. The doctors indicate the number of close contacts, and then epidemiologists conduct the epidemiological investigations at sites. They visit households and they refer them to the testing, and all this information, index information, contacts, the list of contacts, and information about each contact, the information about the results of such tests. We introduce either TSD or some other, and the question, also information about the preventive treatment was suggested or not. If yes, then we see the cascade here, and we have the monthly monitoring for liver ferments who are engaged in the 𝗵𝗵𝗿𝗲. So this database collects information about the results of safety monitoring. And the information about how many have completed. Yes, so this information is included too. Another thing is whether the data is really comprehensive. So there is a possibility of collection of data, but whether it is used at the maximum level, and it's a different issue, because the program is new and it's still being fine-tuned, and we are in the end of this process actually. And this is one of the outcomes of our meeting, to receive data for a cascade like that. So our current systems of data collection do not allow for it. But before that, we were reporting somehow, right? I said that 𝗵𝗵𝗿𝗲 started in 2022, but the WHO would request this information on an annual basis all the time for years. How many have started the prevention treatment, but they didn't ask how many completed. And that information, Marina was talking about the quarterly and thorough monitoring, and that information derived from these monitoring reports. And because the monitoring actually tests the previous quarter, we may not have complete data for November and December, and we are usually late by producing and submitting certain information and certain things, like April was the deadline, right? And we await the results of the supervision. Yeah. So we don't have this information so far. But what comes from the 𝗵𝗶𝗿𝗲, we've taken it, but it's not yet verified. Supervision didn't check it, actually. Yeah, we don't have the verified data. And this year, we still do not report based on the 𝗵𝗶𝗿𝗲. We still await verification of the supervision. Well, as last year, we've started the cascade of the screening and preventive treatment. We use it as, the live data, but it's still on paper. And
поскольку у нас во многом вопросы систематического скрининга, обследования, расследования контактов в зоне,
issues of contacts and investigating contacts, it falls under the family doctors, and these family doctors also, provide various information. It's mainly on paper. It's hard to collect all this info, and maybe indeed the application would be a very good solution for that. Yeah, but it's like a medium-term emergency issue, I'd say. Yes, we still have the paper logs, right, and registries. We do have the separate registry for contacts, and in the same registry, we also indicate information about the preventive treatment, and it contains all the information that is required for this cascade, but it's on paper. We have 67 institutions, and that means we have 67 registries, and it's not just one click of button, to get the information. But if all of a sudden we, find ourselves without electronic information, then we have it on paper as well.